I think I figured out the best way the Dallas Cowboys could go about the quarterback position. Let's get to it. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with short, quick-hitting videos such as this one. Let me tell you something about this roster conversation that we're having on a daily basis as we head into the Cowboys preseason finale. I don't know how the Cowboys are going to end up going about a quarterback, but I do know one thing. Trey Lance is going to be a part of that room. Now, this has been obvious for a while. We talked about when J.J. McCarthy with the Minnesota Vikings went down, how there could be a trade scenario somewhere in there, but that was obviously always a long shot, as we described when we had that conversation here on Primetime. It always seemed like inevitably Trey Lance was going to be on the depth chart. And I'm talking about since January, this was evident. Meanwhile, there was a different conversation going on back then about Cooper Rush, because the expectation was, for the most part, to have Cooper Rush be replaced by Trey Lance. But the offseason went on and it went on, and we started to figure out that Lance didn't have everything quite figured out just yet. And more importantly, the Cowboys didn't have Trey Lance figured out. And then before training camp, those roundtables started to happen. And even on DallasCowboys.com, we saw some interesting notes about how behind closed doors in OTAs and minicamp, there seemed to be a growing sense that Cooper Rush had a very legitimate shot at beating out Trey Lance to be Dak Prescott's direct backup. Fast forward to right now, and we are somewhere in between. Right? Cooper Rush has been QB2 throughout all of training camp and throughout 2 preseason games. And Trey Lance has had a somewhat bad performance in the preseason opener, and then a bounce back in game number 2 versus the Raiders. And now it seems like Trey Lance is going to get all of the game versus the Chargers, according to Mike McCarthy's comments from earlier on Tuesday. And also, we heard Jerry Jones be like, yep, Trey Lance is on the team, right? That was what Trey Lance told reporters. So he kind of got ahead of himself leading up to cutdown day on August 27th. And he revealed to us what we felt like we already knew all along, which is Trey Lance is going to be on the team. What I want to discuss today is, what does that mean for the Cowboys? Does that mean that they carry 3 QBs once more and they have Trey Lance on the same situation that he was on last year? He was the emergency QB, healthy scratch for the entire season, while Rush was the game day active quarterback behind Dak. There's a very important NFL rule that changed that could present to us an alternate scenario. And the way that I see it at this point, if this was my team and I was running it, this is what I would do. I would cut Cooper Rush from the 53-man roster and go into 2024 with Dak and with Trey Lance. Now, I admit I might be making a miscalculation here, which I'll explain in a little bit, but here is my logic. The emergency QB rule in the NFL changed in 2024. And let me explain how it worked a year before. So in 2023, the NFL introduces the emergency QB. The way that it worked was, if you had 3 QBs on the 53-man roster, and you could set up the 3 of them and have one not count towards the active game day player roster, which is 48 players, right? So you have an inactive list of players because you need to comply with that 48 player limit on game days, which I might be wrong about this, but I think it's 49 if you carry a certain number of offensive linemen, but I always get that mixed up. I never remember if it's 47 and 48. You know what I'm saying. But it's usually known as a 48 game day roster. And the emergency QB didn't count towards that. But he had to be on the 53 for you to be able to use that rule, to exercise that rule. In other words, Trey Lance was on the 53, so he could be the emergency QB. In 2024, you don't have to be on the 53-man roster to be the emergency quarterback, which means, in theory, the Cowboys could cut Cooper Rush, sign him to the practice squad, have just 2 QBs taking space on the 53-man roster, and elevate on a weekly basis an unlimited number of times Cooper Rush as the emergency QB. Rest of the players, you cannot elevate as an emergency QB, but with Cooper Rush, a quarterback, you could do that. And it could be an every week thing. Now, some downsides to this. Obviously, number one is like that would mean Trey Lance is your backup, and there's no flexibility there. You would have to move things around if you wanted Cooper Rush to be your backup later, because Cooper Rush cannot enter the game unless Dak and Trey Lance go down injured. That's the emergency QB rule. The other downside to this is that I'm not exactly sure how well regarded Cooper Rush is around the NFL. AKA, do you lose him if you cut him? Is it a viable option for the Cowboys to keep him safe from any poaching attempts from other NFL teams, right? Because if he's on the practice squad, he can be signed to any other NFL roster if a team wants to sign him specifically to the 53. So it's not an easy conversation here, because even though we all know that Cooper Rush is somewhat limited, how is he regarded in NFL circles? Because he has been in awkward spots, but he's taken the Cowboys to several wins when his name has been called, right? When Dak Prescott has gone down injured, particularly 2021 and 2022. Now, do the Cowboys feel like they're willing to take that risk? And why would they take that risk in the first place? And I think that's ultimately what this is going to come down to. What is that roster spot going to be used for if it's not Cooper Rush? Now, I'm not talking about doing some roster gymnastics at a cut-down day and get Cooper Rush out there only for him to be signed to the 53-man roster later on. I'm talking about Cooper Rush staying there for the entirety of the season. So what are you doing that roster? What are you saving that roster spot for? And I could see a variety of reasons, right? What if you want to keep a fifth safety? Julius Woods, undrafted rookie, has been great. You might want a spot for him. What if you want to keep 6 cornerbacks instead of 5 if you're not entirely sure if Keemon Hall is better than Andrew Booth Jr. and you want to carry both of them on the team? Or maybe you want another defensive tackle just to be safe, and maybe you don't have the quality, but you could have the quantity, right? So the Cowboys could want 5 defensive tackles instead of 4. And I'm using the numbers that I used on my 53-man roster projection, where, by the way, I had the Cowboys keeping 3 guys, because this is how I would solve this problem, but I think that the Cowboys are likely to carry the 3 of them on the 53-man roster. Now, could Dallas want a 4th tight end, but also 4 running backs and 6 wideouts? The numbers game is difficult when you're putting together a 53-man roster, and having 3 quarterbacks doesn't make things any easier on coaching staffs. So, I don't know. I just wanted to put this out there. I just wanted to share this idea. The Cowboys could go down this route if they decided to. Let me know in the comments if you think it's good. It's a good thought process. If you think there's a flaw in there that doesn't make this viable. But if the Cowboys decide before the start of the season that Trey Lance is their guy to back up Dak Prescott, why wouldn't you try to open up that extra roster spot, keep Cooper Rush on the practice squad, and then elevate him as your emergency QB throughout the entire 2024 season? I think it would be a good idea on paper. The big problem is, do you risk losing Cooper Rush? And if you do risk losing Cooper Rush, how much should you care if you think Trey Lance is a better option as the backup QB? That's another aspect of that conversation. But obviously, Mike McCarthy values the position a whole lot, and only he knows how he will handle it. But I thought I would put it out there. Let me know in the comments if you think it's a good idea, if you think it's a bad idea. And I'll see you again tomorrow here on A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. Love you all, and as always, bye-bye.